everybody's time. So thank you guys all so much for being here today. This is Agent Spotlight. As you can tell, we have the ring light doing its job. I know, right? I'm like, I feel like it's so hot in here.
I had to take my jacket off. I'm like, I need a fan.
So guys,
Yeah.
would you introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about who you are and how long you've been in real estate.
I'm Kenneth Ortiz. This is my wife, Melinda Ortiz. I started about 5 years ago and part-time for about half a year and then went full-time.
I'm Melinda Ortiz, and I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
Joined Ken, kind of got to ride his coattail a little bit. And now we're just kind of focusing on growing a team,
Awesome.
structuring that,
Okay.
kind of seeing how we could add value to other agents.
So just as a side note, what are you guys looking for your team? Is just a team member or any position specifically?
All of the above.
No, okay, so I have 3.
Aha! I see how this is gonna work.
I have 3 that I hope to fill. One is one more agent, another is an operations manager, and then the other one is going to be our office assistant.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay. Thank you so much for giving us that overview. So how did you guys decide that you wanted to get in real estate?
I always had a passion for real estate. Back in just before the market started taking a dive, I had about 5 properties, and I was looking into getting into real estate back then. Market took a dive, decided not to go that route, put it on hold, and then was with the corporate job, making great money, over 6 figures, and just hated it though. Day in and day out, the stress of the job. It was all well and fine until my manager quit, and I had a new manager who was just horrible. I decided, you know what, I'm done with this. I need something else. Talked with Mel, said, hey, who was also making great money at the time.
I held down the fort.
And I said, do you mind if I go into real estate? And we'll try it part-time, but part-time never really works well. And so did it part-time for a while, quit that, and then decided, you know what, I'm just gonna dive in full force. Once I did jump in, there's a little backstory about that too. I don't know how in depth you want me to get with this.
Just keep going.
Okay, so I had a heart attack.
Oh, okay.
And I was a widowmaker. If I didn't get to the hospital in an hour and a half, I wouldn't be here. Drove myself to the hospital, and sure enough, was having and everything. But the blessing of that is I went on disability, and so I got to leave the job, getting paid with the job, but able to dive into real estate full time without having to deal with my other work at all. Still had that support system, and I started doing really well. As soon as I went in full time, I hit my first 3 transactions right back after back, and that year I finished out with 12. Towards the end of that year, I quit that job entirely because it was enough money coming in to supplement what I was making before. And so then that following year, I just hit it full steam. I think I got around 20 transactions that next year, and then Mel came on the year after. That's what.
I see. Okay, very cool. And then, so today's Agent Spotlight is called essentially sealing the deal.
Okay.
So it sounds like you guys have quite a bit of backstory that you can use to talk about sealing the deal. So when you go in and you're helping clients and you're either making offers or receiving offers, what are the things that go through your mind to say, okay, this is how we're going to make this a win-win?
So, it's kind of funny because when you had mentioned this, I kind of thought about it, and in the back of my mind, it's always our client's goals. And the win-win has to come from our client goals, but it's also understanding what the opposing side's goals are as well. Not opposing, but it's like where you want to actually work together rather than, we've worked with agents where it's like the agent for some reason is having a hard time, they just don't want to work with you. And we've had it where it's been smooth and everybody's happy, and smooth and everybody's happy is always the place to be.
Absolutely.
Like when you're working together and you see that your client's goals are being met and this other situation could work, because everybody has a why to why they're moving or why they're transitioning. And when you can kind of be the solution to help drive that and direct that, and you can see a clear path from both ends, I think that's the win-win. Everything else happens in between, and what's also important to remember is there's just so much pivoting involved. So there's no transaction that's gonna go so smooth sailing, or like you almost expect it. The expectation is that yes, you want it to, but the number that do are far and few in between, and the number of hurdles that actually come through, and typically the smooth ones are like, wow, that was really easy. I was not expecting that. And the ones that you think are easy actually end up being more difficult sometimes. And you just never know where you're gonna get. But it's about pivoting and then finding a solution. And if you can keep that in mind, and you always have the seller, and if we're the buyer and we're keeping them in mind, then we know how to pivot together. And it's that communication that is so important between cross agents. We have one other team member, Ken Casper, who helps us. And as we're going through this process and we're teaching him the win-win solution. It's working with another agent. It's the communication that we have. It's our clients' goals. It's them. So you also, this industry ends up being very small once you're in it and you're doing a lot of transactions. You don't want to ruffle feathers. Like, you want to be able to work with them again. And the agents that I have a hard time with, if I see their listing, or if I see, and I just know that they're not pleasant to be around or to talk to, I'm like, Ken, we're dealing with this person again. Like, I don't want to be that agent on the other side.
And then I get to deal with them. But,
I'm like, they're yours, all yours.
No, I would say the key to the win-win is establishing that rapport with the other agent right off the bat.
Okay.
You want to make sure that they're going to be your best friends with this transaction. You really need them to be. It's something that right off the bat, what can we do to get this deal done, and how is your client going to be happy? I know what will make my client happy, and we need to make sure that this gets moved forward. Because as Mel said, no transaction is perfect. There are pitfalls through every transaction, and some may go well, but at points in time, others may go off track. And if you haven't established that good rapport with that other agent, that you can go to them and say, hey, I know this Binzer inspection pulled up a lot of items, and your client may want some of these things fixed. My client has a threshold as well too. If you can just let me know which are the big ticket ones that we can get accomplished. So you can kind of gauge and field those things to begin with the other agent. But it's about keeping that rapport strong and never raising your voice, never getting heated about any of those things. Even if the other side does, you have to tone it down, and you have to be in control of it. And a big part of that is just keeping an even and calm demeanor throughout the whole part of the transaction.
Can I share a quick story?
Yes, and then I have a question.
Okay.
But please share.
Just to kind of go into this win-win, is we had a client who was a bachelor all the way up until he wasn't. Underwriting got pulled. It was even like, hey, can you help me with my tile? And then debt to income ratio, the DTI just blew out of the water. And we were scrambling like, oh my goodness, now it could also be a false disclosure, whatever, So there was a lot involved. We were able to work with the cross agent. And I kid you not, we postponed their close of escrow. Mind you, it's 2020, Q3, so it's still crazy. We convinced them to do an extended close of escrow by 90 days for him to get divorced, and we closed on that property.
I see.
So a little clarification with what she said, because I know it might have been a little tough to understand. When we got the pre-qual, the buyer said, I am not married. Then halfway through the transaction, they find out, oh, he's still married.
Like legally.
Which if you're working with your lender, that's a big red flag, because now 50% of, they have to equate for her income as well, and her debts, and her all the other stuff, because they are legally married.
Yes.
So we were able to get through that transaction by creating a close date for 3 months later, which never happens in this market with rising, it's nuts.
Absolutely. So just FYI, when you're talking to your clients, it's not, are you married? It's, is there somebody who think they might be married to you? Do you file your taxes jointly with somebody else that I should be talking to? Good questions. So just wanted to circle back really fast. You guys talked about establishing that rapport, okay? That's how you get all this stuff done, right?
Yes.
What is your process for establishing the rapport? Like, what are the things that you do on every deal to really start working with that agent, even necessarily before anything's been signed?
First,
Oh my God, you pick up the phone?
I call.
No!
I call. There are times where if we have multiple showing, and it depends on the property too, but a lot of times if my client is extremely interested in the property, before I even go show it, I will call and just say, hey, do you have any offers? Awesome. You do, you don't? Great. All right, when are you guys planning on making a decision? I'll fill out everything to give my client that information the second that we walk into that door so that they know, because here's the thing. It's not just about that. Your client, when you manage their expectations and they have data right there in the beginning, let's just say their budget's $400, but we come in and I say, hey, I just want to let you know there are 3 other offers on this property above list price. She wouldn't disclose what the price point is, but I have a gut feeling that, and you will, once you do this enough, you'll know. I have a feeling that they're going to be south of 405 or they're going to be closer to 410. Is that even a part of your budget? Is it something that you even want to consider? Because here's the thing, it wastes so much time if we don't fill these things out. And I'm not going to throw over a blind offer, even though sometimes it seems easier in this type of market. It makes me uncomfortable to throw over anything, any type of offer without talking to the agent first.
and to Mel's case in point, if you have a client whose budget is 500 and you're going to show them a 475K home, and you call the agent beforehand and the agent tells you, oh yeah, we have 4 offers at 510, then you don't save yourself some time. Driving to the property, going over there, and it's way over your client's budget already,
So we filled out things depending on the situation, and there are times where we don't have a lot of time to call on every property, or your client wants to go see 16 homes. Well, then at that point in time, we say, can you choose your top 3? And we kind of work it that way. And so it's about their expectations, it's about what information you can gather before you get there. And it's not where the old days where you have a printout or anything, like you have all that information, they have it at their fingertips too. It's now about the missing piece that they don't have. And that's kind of the same way when we do a search around the perimeter. Like we almost do an inspection light while we walk around with our clients. And that's just, and someone had mentioned who's not in this field, yeah, well, I would have to learn about granite countertops and the type of windows. And I'm like, no, actually, you don't want to know about the things that you know your clients are paying attention to. You want to know about the things that they don't see.
Exactly.
You want to be able to see, termites if they're visible. You want to see water damage. You want to let them know if there's pests on the perimeter, if they're hard to deal with. It's the bird in the attic that's going to be a hard thing to get out. They may see it as something small.
the grass growing in the living room.
We've had that happen before.
Yep, it's the tree that's coming up, and
Yeah.
I understand how that goes. Okay,
Oh.
so it sounds like before the deal,
Mm-hmm.
you call and have a
Filter.
conversation. And just so you know, guys, you are okay to laugh. It's actually better if you do. I'm funnier. Just keep going, okay? So it sounds like you make a phone call, you have a conversation, okay? Is a part of that conversation, hey, what does your seller need?
Very much so.
Okay, talk to me about that.
First, you want to find out what type of is the seller, if it's vacant or if it's not. Is the seller needing a close of escrow date that's in range? Are they needing any type of lease back options? It's a crazy time period where those are actually existent. If the seller is looking for a quick close, long close, if they just want the most money they can get, if they're looking for, are they okay with repairs being made, if a couple suggestions. You can go over a lot of details just by asking what the seller wants. And you can kind of guide that conversation along with the seller's agent. And you just want to get all those details down before you even get there, so you know how to make your offer better than the rest of them. Which is probably the biggest part of it after you get in. I know we'll probably head that way, so.
You're right,
But-
you're right. So, and just so you guys know, I had a broker one time that said, if you have more than one counter offer on a deal, you're not doing your job. you should have called them before to ascertain a lot of those little things that they needed in the contract. Now again, with homes staying on the market for 5 whole minutes until they're under contract, that's not always possible. So just keep that in mind. This is not a normal market, okay? So, sounds like when you submit the offer, you've already started establishing that rapport.
Correct.
Fantastic. So talk to me about after an offer is accepted or after you get an offer on your listing and everybody's happy and it's all good and people are packing boxes and stuff.
So we also put an expectation with our clients because it's kind of heavy traffic for the first while we're hunting. That, hey, you're not going to hear from us like every second of every day.
Wait, you mean you actually turn your phone off? What?
No.
That's just okay. So you set the expectations with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. What about with like the other agent? Say, okay, what does that look like as far as setting expectations after you go under contract?
Well, once we go under contract, we establish the next steps and what we're doing. We reach out to them. We have a transaction coordinator most of the time that helps field that as well too. And she'll take that conversation one step further. We don't wait for the buyer's agent to put it into escrow or any of that. We have our transaction coordinator manage all of that as well, so that everything's established up front. Everybody has every name and phone number within the title company's phone number, the lender's phone number, and both agents' phone numbers are in there as well too for everybody to see. So everybody has every bit of information that they need to get a hold of anyone right off the bat when we open escrow. For our opening letter, I should say. And then forward from there, we have to schedule the inspection and detail who's going to be going to the inspection as well too, based off of the look of the home. If we need to get more than just a general inspector there, if we know there are air conditioning issues or so forth, and coordinate all of that. And I'm not sure if you're trying to lead somewhere in particular with this.
No.
No?
No, not at all. Is there any particular place you want it to go?
So, and after that, we roll through the inspection and we continue with the BINSR and the next, we always talk about 3 stages of negotiation for any contract.
And this is just how we break it down for our clients so that they know kind of what we're doing in a very simple way. And that adds the value in terms of what they're paying for, because you have FSBOs who want to do it by themselves and buyers who shop on Zillow who think that they know everything as well. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So we have the price of the home. Once you negotiate the price and everybody's happy with that, then you have, when you get the BINSR repairs back, and then you negotiate over those. That's the second stage of the negotiations. And then third, if you have a loan, then you have the appraisal that comes in, and you have to have another negotiation at the appraisal stage. Lastly, there can be issues at the final walkthrough if you get that far, and if there is an issue, which more often than not there's not. We have had some come up, but recently. But yeah,
Fresh.
and so you navigate all of those, and you make sure you tell your clients all of that beforehand, so that they're aware of those potentials that can come up. If they're not aware of them, it's a big deal. If they are aware of them, then they know, oh, this is the next step that's coming along. So you have to make sure you're guiding your client the whole way through as well. As far as communication with the other agent, it's just being very calm, very open and honest with them, and to what your client's needs are, what your client's wants are, and how to objectively get to where they need to go, versus where their client is as well too. You ask them, and you try to come to an agreement that both sides are going to be happy with, because there's another negotiation after that, potentially. So you have to make sure that this isn't just I'm going to win this battle, because if you do win it, you're going to lose the war eventually. We had a contract with a lawyer. He was selling his own home. He had a realtor representing him to write up the MLS items, but then he was taking over everything there. And I went and looked at the property. I was the buyer for myself, buy investment properties. And as soon as I was negotiating the home value with him, there was quite a bit of work to be done. And I said, okay, we went back and forth, and finally he said, okay, we'll take this, but and that was it. It was really super aggressive, and he said, this is my hardline price, and he was being very aggressive. And as a lawyer, he won that price. But when I told him, look, this is step one, we have 3 more negotiations, and I know if you're gonna be this difficult at this stage, then there's no way I'm gonna get everything that I need done in the bins or repairs, because there was a lot. So I said, never mind, I'm not going to go through the transaction, because there's 3 phases. And if somebody's balking at phase 1, that's the way they're gonna be the whole way through that transaction. So it was not going to be a win-win through that side. And funny enough, his home was on the market for like 6 more months before it went down, because he was so aggressive and he was winning that one battle. So it's not about winning one, it's about getting through the whole thing.
Well, and just to touch a little bit on that, is that people hire you as a professional. And oftentimes you find people who are in good, high authority positions that you work with, and they're the ones that they want to feel in control too. Kind of like this guy. We've had other clients who have done this, and they can't just trust in the process and trust in you, and you have to take control of it. Because at the end of the day, the attorney or the real estate agent who's doing this full time, like, who knows more about the market? And who is going to guide that to an actual completion or a win-win? And who's going to end up having legal remedies after the fact? You know, like, for us, it's being a professional, it's guiding our clients. And we have decided not to work with clients as well because of this. And sometimes it's just like, hey, you know, if this can't come to an agreement, it's also perhaps not a good fit in terms of client for us as well, because we want to make sure that we're doing our job. We want to make sure it's a win-win, and we truly are very transparent. And so if it's not a win-win and it doesn't fit within our values of who we are or how we're running our business, then it's not worth it for us. And sometimes you have to learn that sometimes it's not worth it to the end. Like, sometimes the heartburn, the heartache, or the legal ramification later down the road, something that's going to happen, and if you have that gut feeling, like, you buckle up and leave.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit more about that. It sounds like you've had a situation where you've had to say, I'm out, Mr. Buyer or Seller.
We did have one.
I was going to say, there's one thing that comes to mind. I know there is. So what is it?
So I think that's probably what's prompted this conversation, because you heard kind of what was happening. But we had a client, and it's always tough too, especially when you have a relationship with somebody. So it was one of our neighbors who wanted a particular home. There's no inventory for it, so I actually went and searched for inventory, found the perfect home, the model that they were looking for, everything within the same neighborhood, the community, you know, was like finding a unicorn that was off market. In order for it to work, both sides needed to be flexible, because the family, the seller on the other side, was trying to build a new property, which would require lease back until March. We had kind of gotten everything, tried to streamline, and you know, this is not even on the MLS yet, so there was a lot of detail that had to be worked out with the cross agent. And ultimately, she was also trying to navigate things for her seller. What it came down to is our client was in a position where they were trying to take control of the situation, and they were trying to have demands on the seller. And this is pre-MLS, you know, we have no competition for the property that they want. And it just got to a point where, you know, they were getting aggressive and didn't want to complete or follow through the negotiations that we had already set in place as we were verbally getting things across the finish or the line to just that first step of getting our offer accepted.
So this is your clients that were...
Our clients were the buyers.
Okay.
The seller agent was navigating for them. Our clients didn't want to provide a lease back because it wasn't in the counter offer. And we were trying to watch out legally for them in terms of making sure that their lending would stay in place with the lease back, with the 60 days. So just knowing our realm as a profession, we also know the parameters around how we structure things, what things we can add into contracts, what things need to be placed outside of the contract in order for it to be a win-win to work.
And to clarify a little bit, and to roll back to how we started this conversation, the seller clients wanted the flexibility of a lease back for an unknown amount of time because their home was getting completed. So they said, okay, we're willing to give this to you without putting it on the MLS at a severely reduced price. Once they hit it on the MLS, it's going to go about $15K above what we agreed upon as the sales price. But what they really needed was that flexibility. Okay, we don't know, they tell us our date's going to be, in March or whatever, but we don't necessarily know for sure because they've given us pushback dates already. So we need flexibility. And our client said, yeah, we can give you flexibility in the beginning. And then as we started through the negotiations back and forth, they then said, nope, we need a static date. And at one point, we got the counter back from them stating, okay, the lease wasn't written into the contract because they were getting a conventional loan. And conventional loans will only allow you a maximum of 60 days leasing back. After that, they just don't allow it. So we negotiated verbally with the other agent, okay, we will supply us the lease back as well. We'll sign that and move forward. Well, the other agent just sent back the counter without any of the leasing terms. So my client then said, okay, let's sign this. We're not giving them the lease back option and we're locking it in. So even though we verbally already told them, yeah, let's move forward. Let's do it this way. For my client's benefit, now that my client had the new counter, they said, nope, they didn't send us the lease backs. We're moving forward.
And we'll kick them out in January.
Yeah, and we're kicking them out early, and that's it. We're just leaving it that way. And so I'm like, okay, hold on. I've got to check with my broker first off because we've given them, in the email as well as verbally, details on what we're going to be doing. We don't have a counter stating any of that. We don't have the other lease. I need to check with my broker to make sure that we are okay to move forward because we had a verbal contract that stated one thing and we're writing up a different, statement as well too. So I called Jim. Call Jim too. If you have any questions, just call him, text him, whatever. They'll get back to you. And I asked him and Jim goes, well, you can move forward with this as your client is wanting. It really stinks that your client isn't a man or woman of their word, but you can move forward. And so we were just like, oh my goodness, we don't want to. It's all in our neighborhood. We deal heavy in our neighborhood, and there's no way that this wouldn't get out of down the road that we totally screwed over somebody, negotiated one way and then turned it another.
But nor did we feel good about it.
Right. So what we ended up doing is said to our client, we got them to provide a second counter, and providing all the details they wanted seen in the lease. We just said, look, why don't you just put everything on paper, get everything in there as detailed as you want. And so we converted all of that into a counter and sent it back over. The beautiful thing at that point is they would have to accept it after that point in time. And so that was our version of an out at the time. We knew they weren't going to accept it. The one thing that they wanted, the one thing that we knew they wanted was flexibility. That counter gave them none of that. So they obviously said no, and we disengaged from the contract and much happier for it.
Between now and March would be a really long time.
Yes, because, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like if somebody is going to start going back on their word and just start being difficult to work with, have you ever seen it where it's they've stopped and they've just started to acquiesce to everything, or is it usually a gradual process where they get more difficult to work with and by the end you're like, yes, I wish I had fired you because yes, I will never get those 45 days of my life back? Absolutely.
And we've worked with difficult clients in the past when we were really young and hungry in the industry, and that's when you learn not to. So take it from people who've been through that to learn not to.
Right. Is there ever that feeling that you're like, just this doesn't feel right?
You'll save yourself enough heartache with that one moment in time. But you can choose who you work with, believe it or not.
Yes, you can. Okay, so what would be your number one piece of information, number one nugget for a smooth transaction? What would that one thing be?
Communication. Okay. Just having it with all parties. You just want to make sure you're communicating with everybody. The more you know about all of your parties, the seller's agents, the seller's clients, what their wants are, what your clients' wants are, the better you can make your offer accepted versus the crowd. So communicate, find out, question, ask why, find out their whys. If their why is because, we need this to close really quickly because we're making an offer on another home, and if it doesn't, we won't get our dream home. That's a lot of options you have to be able to get in there. Well, if we can close this quicker, maybe we can ask for, closing costs or something else like that. So knowing their why gives you a better ability to give them that and help your client out in the return. So really, really ask why for everything, even the other clients.
Well, and it's sometimes even in the way that you ask.
Okay.
So, even when we're fielding things, if someone tells me, hey, and I ask for a price, like, do you tell me about your highest offer? And you say, I'm really not unable to. And I'll say, okay, well, this is kind of where my client is. Do you have something higher than that? Or I just start guessing, kind of. Do you have anything above 405? Okay, how about 415? And they may not be able to tell me, but I at least have a moving target to be able to gauge and say, hey, this might be the sweet spot. And, even though it was very difficult this summer, we're still, I don't think that we had any clients more than 4 months. And that lady was a VA, and we got her under contract 3 times.
Oh boy.
Different story.
Different story.
You're like, that's a whole nother.
But, yeah, it's communication, and these things pivot because of communication. And I feel like we get in the door more times than not because of it. It's just asking and understanding and trying to make that connecting point. Because I will say that sometimes we get in the rut or we're like, oh, we can't call, or if I can't get a hold of them by phone, then I'm texting immediately after. But my first thing is call first, because you'll get more information.
And don't accept, like Mel said, we're not allowed to give you that information, because you can still get them to not give you that information and give you a lot of information around it.
While building rapport.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it also sounds like that's a conversation to have with your clients, because if your clients say, yeah, absolutely, you can disclose all of the information, what the highest offer is, all that kind of stuff, all you have to do is get their okay, right?
Right.
So.
And now they have it on the ER if you're representing the seller. So they have that checkbox on the ER, whether you're allowed to disclose. So
yeah. So it sounds like that's also a conversation that you have with your clients before you go into the whole process of.
And in our opinion, it's always best to disclose it. In our opinion, because you're able to get there's a lot of people who voice the opinion, no, we're not going to talk about our other offers in here because we want to make sure that they're going to, what if they were going to throw in something much higher? If you get a even 10, 20K higher for your buyer, your seller, you're making them 10 or 20K more. And then if another offer comes in, then that offer can try to beat them out, and then they can go back and forth. But if you're never disclosing, you may not even get those other offers. So yeah, just tell them the price that you're getting in, tell them how good it is, and help structure their offer so that it's better for your client as well too. When we're on the listing sites, it's the same way, but the discussion's kind of more reverse. You tell them what your client wants so that they can give it to you.
And we do help channel that conversation a lot from the selling side as well. And that's kind of like we're selling to the agent who's calling. Does that make sense? Is that you're saying like what things your client has done beautifully? What are they looking for?
Oh, did you get a chance to go to the clubhouse?
We
did you get a
excitement,
chance to talk about the other things that your listing has? And then, and one thing, our client really wants to make sure that this is their one and only offer. If you can put any earnest money that goes hard immediately, or any sort of down payment that right after the due diligence period goes hard, talk about every aspect of it. You make sure the contract comes in is structured so once you accept it, your clients are going to be happy and favored with it. So if it comes in and maybe only $2,000 goes hard immediately, if they back out of the contract, your client gets that $2,000 right away. So they're like, okay, Ken, no worries, no harm, no foul. They backed out of it, but we got that $2,000. Thank you so much. They're thanking you for them walking away, and then you get the next one coming in. So having those discussions with the other agent really helps their offer look better, work better, and everybody's happier because of it. Win-win.
Well, and I think, sorry, just one more piece. When you know what your client's goals are, this is really the key thing. So just from even, let's say, a listing side, when you know what their goal is, anything above that is gravy. You know, and so if you can create a win-win that is above that while communicating and have a good transaction, when you could maybe get an even higher one and they're just difficult as heck and everyone ends up upset at the end of the deal. But if you can get down to like what is their primary goal, and sometimes it's like for the listing, hey, what would it take for you to not even look at other offers? What's that price look like to you, seller? And if the seller tells us, then we know how to channel the conversation coming in the door as well. So it goes both ways for buyer. You know, I'll call seller agent and say, hey, do you know what your client's like right now, like this right now time is to drop all other showings? Like, what is that price?
And we know your listing's incoming soon. We know you're having an open house this weekend. But if we get in there right now today, I know you mentioned that we can't show it until this weekend. But if we get in there today and are able to make you that offer that your client is willing to accept, wouldn't that work for all of us? And if you don't mind, I understand that your client has asked you to do the open house. But if you can just talk to them and ask them if they have a number that they'd accept today, if we came in to stop all of that from happening, let me know. I know that would be, your client would really like that. Plus, and this is a trick, I don't use it often, but if you look up the client's name on Monsoon and you use their name, it flips the idea in the seller's head a lot. Hey, I know Richard and Susie had their listing coming up this weekend, and oh my gosh, great job for getting that listing. We were wondering if Richard and Susie wouldn't mind us showing it today to get in. We really have some buyers that love their floor plan, are super excited about it, and if we can make you an offer that Richard and Susie would really love, something that they would absolutely accept today. If you can just talk to them, let me know, and we can go from there. So they already like, oh geez, they have another in with my clients. I'll talk to them because I don't want them to think that I'm not talking to them.
Well, they just know
It's a little tricky, but
I was gonna say, what is that called when you do that? It personalizes it, right?
Yeah.
Good job, because like that's one of those sneaky little things where
It is.
It just plays like your mind just shifts.
Absolutely. And guys, just so you know, you always talk about a home with buyers, with sellers, you always talk about their house. It takes the personalization out of it, okay? It takes that emotion out of it. So, or puts the emotion into it.
Yep.
Exactly. So, guys, any last things that you're like, oh, I forgot to say this, or just, you know, if somebody had told me when I was first in the industry, this would have been the thing to be successful at sealing the deal.
Always ask why. It's the understanding the why of everyone you're talking with is the most crucial thing out of everything. If you understand that the reason that the seller is selling their home is to be closer to their sick mom back in Idaho, and time is more of the essence than money, we're not talking about ways to screw them over, but we're talking about ways to give them what they need. And if that's their need, then you want to help them get what they need. Okay, if they're able to do that, we can make this close faster. My clients don't really want to, but they're willing to give in on that one thing. So it's understanding the needs of the other people that really gets you the edge. And it helps you negotiate really well on your client's behalf and getting the other party what they need. That's probably it for me.
Well, I think that you touched it. Like once you figure out everybody's why and their goals, it becomes just much more transparent and easy. Because there's some times where you're trying to work a deal, and if you don't understand from across the table, it's hard to be successful at a win-win. You know, and I think that that's ultimately what we strive to do as agents is you kind of want to have that deal that you walk away and you feel like, gosh, my client's happy, and you know that their client's happy too. Like it ends up working out. Like, you always walk away from those deals feeling better because it worked for everybody. But there's gonna be times where it doesn't work, and that's okay too. And so then it's like the next home, or that you're going to look at, or you're prospecting, or whatever it be. But it's just a matter of understanding kind of the entire landscape of what's happening through the negotiation that you're going through.
And try not to put your thoughts or your needs for them above theirs.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time that our clients, their one need was to get there quickly. And instead we got them a deal that gave them about $50,000 more than they were asking for, but it took longer. And we were showing them how much more money they were going to get. Ultimately, we got them the money deal, not the time deal, and they were still upset throughout the whole transaction because of the time. So we, in most people's eyes, you would think most people would be like, yes, that money, but it was the time. And so that's an instance where we didn't get our client everything that they needed. So really focus on what your client needs, not what you feel they do.
Great. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Guys, do we have any questions?
I guess I understand communication is huge, and maybe I thought coming into this was going to be a little more about what right now is happening to seal the deal with your clients. So my question is, want to answer or not, is what are you doing with your buyers to present what's part of your offer? What are you saying? We've got to have this, and this, and this offer. What are you seeing in that market? And then my second question is are homes still going over asking? It seems like they are. I have a listing that went way over listing, but then I listened to the Cromford report and they say, oh no, now they're below, more so we're below asking price. Just want to know your feel of your active agents.
So I'm going to answer them in reverse. As far as if they're selling out or below, it's like you're hitting something with a shotgun. There's a spray pattern. So there are some that are going below and some that are still going really high. We showed a listing the other day. It was for $240 and it ended up going for $360. Yeah.
And it had a hole through the house.
And you could see through the kitchen, through it, not through the window, through the kitchen, to the backyard. And as far as what we're doing so repeat again, what we're doing to...
Like the comfort report first, is that what you were going for?
No,
that kind of answered it. And I agree, it's all about, did that agent overprice it? I mean, it's happened over years. Did they overprice it, or, we're testing the market, where are people at with that? So pricing aspect, yes. The other part was, what are you working with your buyers and saying, okay, buyer, if you really want this house, what are you encouraging them as part of their deal?
So a big part of that is to find out how flexible that buyer's offers can be. You have to really see, what their down payments look like and how much cash extra they have if they're able to make some creative offerings. And then again, it's about meeting the needs of the seller. So many times you don't have to now you're having to get less creative, which is great. We've been able to make a couple offers where we're asking for full concessions, full closing cost concessions. And we're getting those right now. Like I said, shotgun pattern. So it's really about talking to the other agent and really finding out what's going on. How many offers are on this property right now? Done? Okay, perfect. We're going to go in and show the property. Before I get there, what are some of the needs of your client as we move forward? And then would they be willing to consider paying some closing costs for our buyer?
What about like waiving appraisal? And are you still seeing that? Are you seeing that your buyer has to waive and of course it all depends on if they've got the money to do it. Are they doing an amount? Are they doing unlimited?
Both. Again, shotgun pattern. So there are, like on the one that went for $360, that one had full waive. On many offers, they had 90 offers.
90 offers?
90, the most I've ever heard of to date.
Yeah.
90.
On that house.
This was
last week. Sorry, this was last week.
With the hole in the house?
With the whole
Yeah.
house.
Okay.
Well, and I think to kind of look at it too, is it still comes down to communication.
And if you have
So-
a particular buyer in mind, we can talk about that and what we feel that you should do with that buyer.
So,
No,
yeah,
I'm just kind of trying to understand, I'm not a big agent, you guys are working with a lot more deals than what I'm working with. So I want to make sure I represent my buyers to the best that I can. And sitting as the selling, the listing agent, yeah, give me your best offer, I can help figure out that. But how am I gonna get the best as I'm working with my buyer? What is out there? What's the norm out there that you guys are seeing? That's my competition, to know what it is with having the best interest in my buyer. Because I don't want them to have to do too much if the market isn't all accepting that. And now I've made them step their game up more than they maybe needed to.
well, and I think it comes down, so the communication here also plays into it, and why I say that is because no two offers are going to be the same, even with the same buyer. So understanding their goals, what their parameters are, their willingness is. Sometimes clients will come to us and say, hey, you know, they have a $400,000 approval pre-qual, but they really want to stay under 350. And sometimes you kind of have to play along and let your clients experience some of the things as well.
Experience what 350 looks like.
And sometimes that changes their mindset too, because then when they walk into a house that's maybe 375, it's a whole different ball game, you know? And so it's kind of gauging where they are at, but it's also understanding, once again, if you're taking a buyer, understanding the seller's needs, because ultimately what's going to get you to the spot that you need to be is not necessarily what you're going to want to do or what your clients, sometimes it's their capabilities. So if I call that cross agent, it's once again, and I say, hey, selling agent, my client has a budget of 350, your home is listed at 335, can you tell me if there's any offers? And if you tell me 375, and sorry, my client can't play, I will straight up call my client and be like, they have an offer at 375, we're not gonna be able to play.
Right.
And that just saves you time, it saves them, and honestly, remember this too, you're not just saving yourself time, you're saving emotional energy for your client as well. And so a lot of times it's that communication that just takes a little bit of a different edge and turn that will help you lead to a better offer. Because if they had said, I have an offer, it's at 345, I'll say, okay, well, I have a client, da, 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 da. What are the terms? What are the terms of the offers that you have in hand? So I'll ask more details. It's not just now price. Now I'm competing on terms if we can make it to 350, right? Because now I'm stating, okay, do you have any appraisal waivers? No. Do you have any appraisal gaps? So that's different than an appraisal waiver, right?
Yes.
And so the more that I can understand about what they have in their hand, the better I can play my deck of cards.
Right. And if I could pop in on this really fast, as somebody who's been coaching agents through this ridiculous no appraisals and appraisal waivers and all this jazz, I would say you need to have a conversation with your client. How much money can they bring to the table outside of any downs or anything like that? And I would just do an appraisal gap. Unless it's a cash buyer that's got $2 billion in the bank, I would say, I'm not waiving appraisal. I don't think that's a smart plan for you. Because if your appraisal comes in $100,000 less than what, and you have 20 grand, which is a big chunk of money,
Right.
you're still tied into this house. Now we have a problem. You see what I'm saying? So, and now you've gotten 3 weeks into a transaction and they're all emotionally charged about it. And then it's like, oh, by the way, you're not going to get it. You can always get a denial based on loan. Like, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about my clients and their emotional expectations of what's going to happen. So, I was going to say, if you need creative ways and creative things to write into contracts, I'm always happy to help. I've seen quite a few contracts in my time in the business. So, just so you know. But, okay. Any other questions we got? This is is the part where it's better if you guys participate. It really makes it better. And then it's just not a dog and pony show.
Anything anyone's struggling with?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Well, I just started last week, so last Monday was my
Yay!
very first
Yay! Love that.
day. So right now I'm just in the learning process. So how did you guys dive into it, just as an agent? Because and I'm brand new to Arizona too. Like, I moved down here all by myself. So I don't have that friend and family connection. I mean, I have made some friends in the year and a half I've been here, but, and I've made some connections, but I really don't, because I've been told, it's basically friends and family is who you kind of start with. I'm like, oh, I don't have that. So how did you what advice would you give me?
There's tons of avenues. It's really what you're most excited about and comfortable. So Ken back there, want to raise your hand, Ken? He's doing a good job right now with Facebook marketing ads.
Okay.
And if you want to talk about how he's getting his Facebook marketing ads, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to help you out. If you want somebody who does a lot of really good cold call dialing, the Cole brothers up front, they hit that phone like mad and they do great business. And I really haven't heard many people on the phone that do it as well and as smooth as they do. Go walk into their office and say, hey, Ken told me that you guys did a great job cold calling. Do you mind if I just fly on the wall and sit in here and just listen? You will get so much expertise by just sitting there and listening. And I'm like, I can do this. It's difficult. It's tough to get to the level that they're at.
Yeah.
But they do it really well. So they're great people to learn from as well. If you want to do door knocking campaigns, we've got great methodologies for door knocking campaigns as well too. We get a lot of our business through events, and we've talked through Ken through a bunch of events that he's now creating as well too. So if you ever want any event ideas, we can help you out there. But it's about finding what you love to do. With events, it's about finding out what you love to do, be it bowling or
Social media.
Or a sport of some sort, volleyball or whatever, or for Halloween, having a dog costume contest in the park and going to your neighbors and saying, hey, having a dog costume contest in the park for $50 gift certificate, come on by, and you collect all of their information and then you just start soliciting them, marketing them. So there's so many different avenues, whatever avenue you like the best. And if you wanted to sit and chat with us and we can kind of go over what you feel is best, more than happy to help you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and all of the life lessons that you learned.
All of our stories.
Yes, all the stories, good and bad. We appreciate it. Guys, just so you know, for the brand new agents in the room, this is more towards the brand new agents in the room, we're going to be having Agent Spotlight again on Thursday. It's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays from now until I think the second week in December. But this Thursday is Escrow 101. Okay, it's going to be taught by Title Alliance. So, because it's like, okay, cool, I have this contract and then I give it to Escrow and then it disappears and then 4 weeks later I see Escrow again. That's not the way. That's not what happens. So this is where you're going to get a chance to learn, like, what goes on behind the scenes. Why do they need my seller's social security number? Good questions. So that will be in here, same bat time, same bat channel, and then yeah, we've got a great lineup of agents that are super helpful and knowledgeable. So we'll just keep giving you the information as much as we can. We'd love to see you. And just so you know, if for some reason you cannot be here on one of the days when you're like, I really wanted to see Escrow 101, guess what? We're recording everything, so it's all gonna go up on my YouTube channel. I'm in the PC office, so feel free to stop by my office. I'll give you the link to my YouTube channel, and then you can watch it from there. Okay? Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.